Love is the strongest magnetic force in the universe. Each time we choose love, we enjoy life more. Each time we choose love, we enhance the quality of our life. Each time we choose love, life seems brighter and clearer. Love heals. Love soothes. Love elevates. Love forgives. Love gives us hope. Love brings us joy and abundance. Love makes us grow. Love feels good. Love makes life colorful. We are all here to learn about love, to love yourself more, and therefore others. Real love is selfless and free from fear. It's joy in the pain. Love more. Love is the thing that makes all things beautiful. Speaking of love,
what an incredible way to honor her father and help others heal from the loss of a loved one due to suicide.
Welcome to Speaking of Love, the podcast, and I am your host, Latoya. I created this podcast in honor of my dad, who was an amazing guy. He had an infectious laugh, and his spirit was magnetic. He was the type of guy who made everybody feel like somebody special. If you were to place him in a crowded room of 100 people, my dad would be the smartest person in the entire room. He was an award-winning radio TV broadcast engineer for many years. Born and raised in the city of Detroit, he was one of the first to go to college in his family. And while attending Wayne State University, he developed a lifelong love affair with the game of basketball. He was the shortest point guard on the team, but he could slam dunk the basketball with either hand. By all outward appearances, my dad lived a rewarding life, but there were parts of him that were known to only him. On March 2nd of 2020, my dad's private struggles became public when he took his own life in a murder-suicide. When he died, a part of me died too. And since the tragedy, I have become an advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. I also created this beautiful podcast in honor of my dad and others like him who are struggling with the effects of mental health challenges. My podcast, Speaking of Love, is named after a show my dad once hosted called Speaking of Sports. Thank you for taking the time to be here with me today as we take a journey in pursuit of the strongest magnetic force on the planet Earth, and that's love. My name is Latoya Bond, and I have a podcast called Speaking of Love. My podcast is dedicated to the memory of my dad who took his own life in a murder-suicide. Aside from that, I am a business owner. I have a home-based business. I am also a legal professional during my 9-to-5 day. And I am a person who operates her entire life on the premise of spreading love. It's the secret to my success. It's the secret to my longevity on this earth, and it's what keeps us going because love is the thing that makes all things beautiful. So that's why I'm here today to talk about my favorite subject in the whole wide world, and that's love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking of Love, the podcast. I'm so excited to be here today. I have Kelly here. Welcome here, Kelly. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Kelly O'Malley, she is here all the way from California,
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Los Angeles. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. It's 10 o'clock in the morning here in Michigan. What time is it there, Kelly?
It's 7.
Wow.
7 a.m.
So
Yeah.
yes. So thank you for getting up bright early in the morning to be here with me to do this podcast. Kelly O'Malley is an LA-based actress, writer, and producer. She's originally from Frisco, Texas, and after earning degrees in film and media arts and religious studies from Southern Methodist University, she moved to Los Angeles to study at the Stella Adler Academy of Acting, where she remains an active alumni. In 2016, Kelly founded A Light in Dark Places in response to losing her father to suicide, and she now serves as the organization's executive director and artistic director of its Plays for the Hope series. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
So I just want to give a disclaimer before we get started with the interview. We're going to be speaking on the subject matter of suicide. We may talk about weapons. So if any of this is triggering to you, please take a moment to step away to take care of yourself because I want you to be okay. This is very important information, but we do realize and we want to be sensitive to those individuals who may find it difficult to listen to. So take care of yourself, please. Kelly, tell me about your life growing up. What was life like for you as a young girl in Texas, finding your way? What was it like for you?
Yeah, I grew up in the suburb of Dallas, Frisco. And I have 3 sisters. I had a house with like 11 animals. It was really fun and very creative. Like I would I would show. I did a lot of riding horses and competed in that and they put on like Spice Girl concerts with my friends. I'd like memorize the dance moves and teach them and but yeah, no, it was good. I had, both my parents were together at the time and it was just a lot of family, and my aunts and my cousins over all the time. And my dad's side of the family would come in town a lot. And it was really great. There's always like things as an adult you look back at and you're like, oh, okay, I can kind of see how we ended up here. Like we're here with, my father gone. But as a kid, it felt really fun for and especially like the elementary school ages, like it felt really easy and fun and playful.
So you grew up, you went to college, you pursued your dreams, your educational dreams, and tragedy struck in your life. Can you walk us down that journey of just discovering what happened?
Yeah, of course. So I was in college. I went to SMU, which is only half an hour away from home. And I was studying there, and what was supposed to be my last year of college, I got a call one morning to come to the house, and my dad had died that evening or late morning. And obviously that changed everything. At that point, my mom and my dad had already divorced. And so me and my sisters were primarily with my dad. And then he was gone. And thinking of, kind of, there's this thing you were in your introductory video about when you were saying a piece of you died. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot about how like I felt that day, like my DNA changed, like down to like my very DNA, like everything changed. Like it was like, you're in college and you have like the protection of the family or the, your parental figure. And then one day it's like, okay, well now I'm an adult, but like a full adult. Like I don't have that anymore. And that was
Mm-hmm.
really painful experience. Yeah, and I have 3 younger sisters, so that was um, you know,
So,
difficult.
Kelly, were there any warning signs as you look back? Because what I've learned about suicide is that hindsight is always 2020. So now that this has occurred, when you look back, what were the warning signs that would let you know that this could possibly happen?
That's a great question. They were there. They were definitely there. My dad had a lot of anxiety. Um, and he had a lot of, I think, like OCD tendencies. Like, he might have been diagnosed with it if he had continued to get help, but definitely had a ton of anxiety, and it was getting worse. And looking back, like we found out after the fact, like he had Hashimoto's thyroidism, which often only presents in women, or more likely presents in women. So the doctors didn't check him for that. And he was like losing hair and weight and like couldn't sleep. He made some big life changes and was like kept going back and forth. Like he was struggling to make and keep decisions. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it, yeah, that's really, those are definitely, joking about it, like all these signs that like, they teach you to look for that. And just being very like not himself and being very needy. And at the time, to be completely transparent, we were in a fight. So I had not been speaking with him like more
Mm.
than the occasional for about 4 months at that point. Just the occasional like, Dad, I don't know. I can't even think what it would have been.
Well, that's
But
totally understandable. I had the same experience with my father. There were times when he was supposed to show up for a special occasion and be there for me, and he didn't show up. He just didn't come. And I would feel hurt about the fact that he didn't appear at times when I really needed him. But now that he's gone, I look back on those situations and I realize that he was struggling and he couldn't be there for himself, yet alone show up for me. So that's a way that I helped navigate through the trenches of all this pain and worrying and wondering and the guilt that I was plagued with. I realized that he was suffering, and I know that now more than ever. So
yeah,
that gives me no.
yeah, for sure. It's definitely like, I think I have to, because in my dad's case, he was like too needy. Like I was trying to assert boundaries. So it was like, I
Sure.
need you to like, so yeah, I had to grapple with, I put a bunch of distance between us. But I think that's also just growing pains of like having a parent and being young and like, what are you going to do? But yeah, I feel like I have two. I don't know how if this resonates with you, but it's like I have like the person that's like, okay, my heart really hurts for my dad, and I can really empathize with him and the struggle. And then I still have the little girl that comes out sometimes that's just like, why did you do this? Like I hate
Yeah.
you, and I don't
Mm,
like I love him, and so there's like
sure.
that. The intellectual, mature part of me understands, like, absolutely. And it's really painful to think about how much he was hurting and how he didn't know how to get help.
Mm-hmm. And
How we didn't know.
when people take their own lives, Kelly, they don't necessarily want to die. They just want the pain to end. And
Yeah.
in their mind, it's nowhere the way out. So in 2016, Kelly, you founded A Light in Dark Places. Talk to us about this beautiful organization. Tell us about it.
So after my dad died, I took a break from school and then went back the next year and finished it. And then I moved to LA to study at the Stella Adler Academy of Acting in Hollywood. And so during that, it's kind of, during that time, I think, so I moved out here feeling like I'm not going to be the girl whose dad killed himself. Like I'm going to have this new identity. And of course that never works. Like, we're carrying all the grief still, and all the body and everything has it. So acting was a really healing journey for me. And just in terms of a lot of the technique of just getting me to breathe and be in my body. And as I started to get a bit more comfortable with that, I started being more aware of like, there are so many people who have been impacted by mental health and suicide, or who know somebody. And I think everybody knows somebody who's killed themselves or will at some point in their life, unfortunately. And yet there's a lot of stigma. I know, like when my dad died, it was like, it's really normal to ask a 22-year-old, like, well, what does your dad do? Or where's your dad? And it's like, well, he died. And then the response would be like, oh no, I'm so sorry. What happened? And you say suicide, and people shut down. It's like the shutter comes down.
Yes.
And so that was like really isolating, but so many people are impacted by it. So as I was going through my training, I had this idea, and to use theater as a way to open up the conversation, because I really believe in storytelling. I think storytelling is a great way to, in a non-threatening way, to give people new perspective, to have us be able to question things and empathize with people that don't have our experience. And so that's what got me starting at Light and Dark Places. So it started as a play series. So it's 5 short plays. They're different every year. And we do it, it's about an hour show. And then afterwards we have a discussion with a mental health professional or somebody from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And then we do a reception to encourage people to connect and be together. So like, we're never just like introducing the topic and shoving people out the door. It's all kind of geared towards opening up the conversation, and the plays are like a catalyst into that.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now, is there a way that we could watch that online, or is it in person only?
Right now it's in person only. We did an online version during the pandemic that is no longer streaming, just due to like union and respect, because it's all volunteer right now. But we do have a short film coming out that's almost done, written by one of my favorite writers we've worked with. Her name's Jessica Moss, and we shot that last year. So that'll be released, and I want to do a similar formatting with it, where we record a discussion with a mental health professional and then like release it together.
Wonderful.
And yeah, right now we're in Los Angeles. We do the show in Dallas, and then we'll be bringing it to New York probably the end of next year or the beginning of 2026. We're just locking dates with the theater.
So Kelly, you mentioned that doing this work has been kind of therapeutic for you. What do you enjoy most about the work that you're doing in honor of your dad?
I think the discussions that come out of it are really, really great. I've been really connecting. Like I feel more connected with people. Like it feels less isolating. I think I enjoy maybe being able to provide or put together a space for people that maybe have felt how I felt, where like you do feel isolated and you do feel like you can't talk about it, and they feel like they're not alone. And that's the thing with theater, is like we're sitting in a room together, and it's private because we're in the dark, but it's also communal because we're experiencing it together, and like we're all sharing this energy. What we're getting on stage as actors, you feel the different audience energy. And so we're getting to share in this moment together. And I really love that. I really love that. And I think it's been really healing. I'm sure you can relate, just getting to talk with people who have actually also lost somebody, and in a place where they feel comfortable talking about it. And we're all going in knowing like we're there for that reason.
What is the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself since losing your dad?
I think that I've learned two things. Healing takes time, which sounds, but I remember early on wanting to put a timeline on my grief and realizing you can't do that, and that it will come back. It is there if you're not processing. And that was really important because I wanted just to like, okay, it's been a year, like let's go, like be back to normal. And that's not what it is. And I still have moments where I'm you know, devastated again. But
Sure.
they're less, I think that, and then also just learning to be able to rely on other people, like trust and delegate and allow myself to, I guess, trust that like not everybody's going to leave you.
Yeah. And another thing I'm learning too is that every person's journey of grief is unique. There's
Yeah.
no cookie cutter method. Every person doesn't heal the same. Every person doesn't grieve the same. Some people go through the journey of struggle a little bit longer. Some people, it gets easier over time. So I want people to be encouraged to know that no matter where you are in your grief journey, just know that it's unique to you and that it's okay to take your time. We're not in a rush, and we can take it one day at a time, step by step. And that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Kelly, I want to talk a little bit about I want to go in more detail about the warning signs of suicide. As we all know, the month of September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. So this month, I'm kicking off several interviews with suicide loss survivors like yourself. And I just want to raise a little bit of awareness because before my father passed away, I knew what the definition of suicide was, but I didn't know what the warning signs were. I didn't know what to look for. So let's talk, Kelly. I'm going to put this here. We're going to talk about some of the warning signs for adults. Risk is greater if a behavior is new and has increased, and if it seems related to a painful event or loss or change. So let's talk about these suicide warning signs. Talking about or making plans for suicide. I know for my dad, he would always talk about jumping from a bridge or the world would be better without me. Those type of mopey conversations or comments that can be a sign for suicide. Acting anxious. I know you mentioned earlier, Kelly, about your dad had a lot of anxiety, being anxious or agitated, behaving recklessly, talking about being a burden to others, talking about feeling trapped or in unbearable pain, increasing the use of alcohol or drugs, talking about feelings of hopelessness or having no reason to live, sleeping a little bit too much or sleeping too less, withdrawing or feeling isolated, showing rage or talking about seeking revenge. You know, people don't realize this, but suicide is often used as a form of punishment to people who have been victimized. For example, I know a lady who went through a terrible divorce, and to get back at her ex, she took her own life so that he would have to raise the children on his own. So oftentimes, suicide is used as a form of punishing others to seek revenge or rage. And then another sign is displaying extreme mood swings. Kelly, do you want to reflect on any of those?
Yeah, yes, I think that's really pretty much what I've learned as well, that and also just that any behavior outside of the normal behavior can be something that's like worth and like looking into or like questioning, and to always trust your gut, because like also we have all these signs, but people know how to hide the signs too. And so then
Sure.
what are
And
we?
some people don't show any signs at all. So
Yeah.
there is something called spontaneous suicide where an event can occur in one day and then that person can just do it that day. So it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Kelly, I also have here, I want to put our banner up. If anyone is watching or listening and they're having thoughts of suicide, there's now the 988 crisis number. It's here on the screen. Just like you would dial 911 in an emergency or a medical situation, there's now a lifeline established for people who are feeling suicidal. You call 988. There are trained professionals there. They can help you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've also understand that there is a Spanish version of it. So if you speak Spanish, you can also call them as well. And they are there to help you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Kelly, if someone is watching right now and they're feeling suicidal, they don't want to be here anymore. The world has just become unbearable. What advice would you give that individual to hold on just a little longer?
I would ask them to get connected to resources. So I would ask them to call 988, to reach out to a friend or someone that they trust, someone that's safe, and open up and see if you can get some help, because there is help available for you. And
Yes, there is.
also with the 988 number, something that I learned that's really fascinating is, or a lot of people don't realize, is that you don't have to be the one who's in crisis to call. You can call for a friend. You can call and get advice too, which I found to be really helpful.
That's correct. Kelly, this podcast is called Speaking of Love. I dedicated this podcast to the memory of my father. He once hosted a radio show called Speaking of Sports. So when he died, I wanted to do something to honor him, but I know nothing about sports. So I decided to name this platform Speaking of Love after his show, Speaking of Sports. So the $1 million question that I ask all of my guests who sit before me, Kelly, speaking of love, how do you define love, Kelly?
I think love is an action. I think we have the feeling and it feels good, but feelings come and go. And so I think when we love, we love through how we treat each other, how we are with each other, and find ways to keep in that despite the feeling.
And that's exactly what you're doing, Kelly, with the foundation that you have created and your career and all in dedication to your father. You're definitely acting in love, and that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Kelly, what's next for you? You have a lot of great things going on. What's next on the horizon for you? What can we look for next?
Yeah, if you're in Los Angeles, I have my play series coming up on next weekend. We open on Friday and we run for 2 weekends. So I have that. That's taking up my world right now. It's a big endeavor and an exciting one. So I have that going on, and then we'll be in Dallas in the spring, and just other acting projects, and I'm writing a script that we're working on. Me and my boyfriend are putting together. We wrote a feature film script, and just trying to stay creative and find ways to, use art to uplift and give people hope and connection. So
Kelly, I have your website here. If you are interested in connecting with Kelly, here is her website. It's alightindarkplaces.org. alightindarkplaces.org is her website. Her Instagram handle is IG. It's a light in dark places as well. So if you want to find her on Instagram, she's under A Light in Dark Places. And then I'm going to put her email address here. Kelly, is that spelled correctly? E-L-L?
Yeah, it is. My middle name's Rose. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I spelled it. Okay, so it's KELLROMALLEY@gmail.com. And I'll put these in the show notes as well.
There's another Kelly O'Malley out there that's getting emails for me because of the handle. So
okay, so I see. I got it now. So,
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you for being here on Speaking of Love, the podcast. I truly appreciate your time, especially being bright and early in the morning in California. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we conclude the interview, Kelly?
No, it's just what a great way to start my day, to get to talk to somebody else who's had a similar experience and get to, talk about a light and dark places. It's great way to start my morning for sure. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And what I admire about you is that you didn't let your father die in vain. You're here and you've created a great platform for people to get help. So I love people who dedicate their lives to enhancing the lives of other people. And that's exactly what you've done, Kelly. And I commend you for that.
Thank you.
When the pages of your life are reviewed, Kelly, and your mission here on the planet Earth is complete, what do you most want to be remembered for?
I'd like to be remembered for, I guess, love, right? How I loved and who I loved, and yeah, I think that's what it comes down to.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here, Kelly. This was my 139th episode of Speaking of Love, the podcast. I will be back on in an hour. I'm coming back on at 12 o'clock noon today. I have another suicide loss survivor who's going to be coming on to share his journey with us. So I thank you for being here. And this concludes our episode of Speaking of Love. And I will be back here momentarily.